Okay, for the YouTube homies, we are starting our tier list now. We're going to be going from D to S. I'll be leaving timestamps to each killer in the description. Also, you'll see it at the bottom of the video there if you want to click around, which a lot of you guys do. I know a lot of you guys click right to Chucky, which is fine. But, you know, if you want to hear my thoughts and stuff on some of the killers and give our own ideas in the comments, which I love doing, make sure to watch the video. You can skip through, but here we go. Anyway, starting in the D tier, we are going to put who I think is the worst killer in the game. The worst killer in the game, in my opinion, right now is the Trickster. There's just so many killers that can do anything he can do a million times better. Onryo is a prime example of this. I bring this up pretty much every time we talk about Freddy. She has better mobility, a better chase power. She actually has built-in slowdown. Doesn't require an iridescent add-on to be able to use her power at all at the start of the game, which the fact that red paintbrush isn't base kit for this killer is honestly kind of sad in my opinion. The fact that he just loads up the game and has absolutely no power at the start and he's just an M1 and has nothing going for him is absolutely terrible, especially at this point in DBD's history when you have a killer like Xeno, who can spawn in, has a fantastic chase power with his tail, jump into a tunnel and scout the entire map in about 2 seconds. So, I don't know. It's my opinion. Feel free to disagree in the comments, but I really do think Freddy is the worst killer in the entire game. And I wish they'd take a little bit of a look at him instead of just randomly nerfing Chucky 2 weeks after he dropped. Next up, we got the Trapper Man. And yeah, he's still kind of in a rough spot. It's just too hard to be able to manage getting all your traps set up and survivors not popping them. He has a ton of counterplays still. Just somebody following you around popping your traps, very hard to deal with. A lot of trappers I've noticed just run doublet eerie, so I mean somebody's going to be injured then, but still, if you're just chasing this person around popping all your traps, you're not going to be pressuring gens at all. There are a couple maps for Trapper that kind of feel like free win maps, to be honest, like RPD, especially with the recent buff he got where he got a bunch of extra traps. I think it's up to 10 now, and that's not terrible, but still, just the fact that you kind of have to rely on a map that's just a gimme to make the killer feel strong is a pretty solid example of why I think he's this low on the list. Next up, we got our boy Hillbilly, which is a very, very cool killer. Very fun. Nice little range of add-ons that can switch him up a little bit here and there with the engravings, you know, the low pro, the turning add-ons. There's a lot of maps that are just awful for him, especially the new ones they've been adding recently, where they just add a million different little objects with terrible hitboxes on them everywhere, so you can't pull chainsaw. I mean, people could just run you around a bush half the time if you're trying to pull out the saw. Any rock, 15 different little carts chained together like Borgo and stuff. I don't know. He's not a bad killer, but there's, again, so many bad maps for him that it definitely drags him down a little bit. I still think he's super fun, and I do really enjoy him. But, yeah, for me, he's just got to be this low. Next up, we have Pig. And last time we did a tier list, I was putting her in D tier. Mainly because I forgot they changed up her add-ons completely. I really don't play Pig very often. But there's actually an add-on that allows her to make every survivor start the game with a trap on, which is a game changer, actually. That's a lot of slowdown right at the start. Now, the big strength of Pig is getting that in the middle of the game and stuff, but if you're against a really strong team, being able to buy that much time for you right away at the beginning is actually pretty huge. So that's going to bump her up to C tier by itself for me. Again, her chase power is terrible. Ambush is just not good, but you can use it to save stacks here and there. The traps are good if you can get them on, but there's so many strong maps for Survivor, and gens are so easy to do that it's just one of those killers where, you know, if you're against a really, really solid team, which is why I do these tier lists, I do them around if you're playing against really solid teams. Because for the average solo queue team, you know, a tier list doesn't matter too much. Just play who you like playing, get pretty good with them, and you'll have a good time. But again, against the really strong teams, they're going to be pre-dropping. They're going to be slamming gens. And by the time the 5th one pops, you've just taken care of your 20th pallet on the meat plant, and they're out the gate. So that's where she is for me. And but that add-on, like I said, does really help her out a lot. Next up, we got Myers, who is only this high because he has the Tombstone add-ons. They are absolutely gross. Also, he does have the infinite. He does have an infinite add-on to make his tier 3 infinite, so he's just walking around with basically perma no-ed, which is very solid. Very, very good add-on. And also the purple tombstone is just disgusting, being able to kill somebody right away, no matter how many times they've been hooked, is a disgusting ability to have. It does have a lot of counterplay, but still, yeah, there are very bad maps for him. Obviously, as just a raw M1 killer, that you're going to suffer from all the maps that any M1 killer would. Garden, still very good. Erie, still very good. Haddonfield is a disgusting map. Meat Plant, you know, the list goes on. But, again, those add-ons do really bump them up a lot in strength. Scratch Mirror can be a really fun time, too. Vanity Mirror, that kind of stuff. Really fun to mess around with. I like the killer. I don't know how Fachala, a Myers main streamer, can just main this killer. Because you load up the Meat Plant against the team down to slam some gens, and man, it is not a great time. But either way, let's get to the next killer here. And that next killer is Ghostface, who has much better stealth than Myers. Can get really, really great snowball potential if you're 99ing people at the start of the game before they know who you are as a killer. Has some pretty solid add-ons. I really think the Olsen's Wallet is definitely one of his best. Philly's almost required on this killer to get like full value out of his stock and stuff. The one problem I really have with Ghostface is, well, obviously he's just an M1, so a Swift on comms is going to make you basically have zero power at all. You know, you're not going to get value to the stealth. You're not going to be able to really be stalking people if people are revealing you from behind and stuff. The one problem I really have with him, though, is how wonky his reveal mechanic is. Sometimes I'll just get revealed by the survivor through the wall, and then sometimes I'll be wide out in the open and they can't reveal me no matter what they do. It doesn't make sense. I don't know how they designed it, but either way, he's not a very good killer at all. He can be fun. I know a lot of you guys like Ghostface, which is why I've made a bunch of Ghostface videos, even though I don't really play him that much. Oh, he can do really well with some of the new perk combinations too, like with Chucky's perks. And making it really, really fun to get value out of his stealth more often. So that's fun too. And but yeah, just as a straight up M1 killer against a team on comms talking to each other, you're not going to be able to get too much done. Next up in the tier list, we have the twins. And anytime I make these tier lists, a lot of you guys will fight me on this one, which is totally fine. Everything's, you know, opinion-based here. I'm not trying to say my tier list is an objective fact. I'm glad we can disagree and have the conversation and stuff about that in the comments without getting too weird about it, you know what I mean? But the twins really do have a ridiculous amount of counterplay against any squads who understand their power and how to play around it. Yes, for the twins to win, they do want to be slugging. Ton of anti-slugging perks in the game, right? A ton of them. People can double up together, so they just W key across the map. You down one of them, Victor gets kicked. They pick him up before you can even get there. Another thing a survivor can even do solo is if Victor's really far away from Charlotte, they can just hop into a locker, and yeah, he can hold the locker shut, but by the time she gets there, they're out and not downed or anything, so it just was a massive waste of time. Hooking people on the twins is an absolute nightmare. The 10-second cooldown after you get a down is the most punishing thing in the game for any killer for using their power well that I can think of. I don't think there's anything worse. It doesn't really make sense to me why the cooldown is so fucking insane. But either way, this killer can still kind of proxy and stuff with Victor. Get away with it even through the new anti-camping stuff. So she does have that going for her, or they do have that going for them, whatever. At the end of the day, the killer does have just a stupid amount of counterplay. Even though their chase power can be pretty good if people really know what they're doing, doubling up and making it really hard on Victor, there's just not that much you could get done, to be honest. For the first killer at the bottom of the B tier, in my opinion, we have the Wraith. And he is extremely solid. So me putting him at the bottom of B tier isn't me saying that this killer is like bad or anything. I actually think he's extremely solid. Probably one of the best killers you could ever start out playing DBD on. He's very simple, very easy to get the hang of, great at teaching you map pressure, you know, super solid mobility, being able to get those free hits and stuff like that, knowing when to leave chases, really good for teaching that. The reason I put him here is he is super solid and he has great add-ons, like I said. But I kind of look at him as like the baseline for killers, like a B tier killer. He is not at all bad though, so I want you to keep that in mind. He does have a lot of tools in his kit, a lot of freebie hits you can get from him. You can shred pallets off the map with Shadow Dance. You can move around like nothing with Windstorm. You know, even the quick Uncloak add-on can be really, really good and get you some crazy hits that survivors just won't expect. Silent Bell. I mean, the list goes on. His add-ons are some of the best in the entire game to me. I do keep him here because, again, against a strong team, it can be hard to get those downs, and downs are really important. You can get those free hits all day, but getting the downs, people taking hits, being able to heal and stuff, lob some pallets down, there's only so much you can do with this power when it comes to downing people, if they're careful and they're smart. People could play really slow, too, you know, take a hit. They know you're playing hit and run. They can meet up in a boon. They can use a med kit. They can talk to their teammates. Hey, come heal me over here. They can really drag out some games as well. So something to keep in mind with the killer. But he is super, super solid. And against your average team, you're going to have a great time. Oh, he's great. He's one of the best at holding like a 4-gen too, Kiko. Just being able to move around and shred all the pallets and the gens so quickly. Next up in the B tier, we have our boy, the Clown, who I have a pretty awesome win streak on. We did lose recently. I think we ended at like 56 for Cloud or something like that. But yeah, I mean, he has a great, super simple power that pretty much anybody could just load up DBD and chuck some pink bottles at survivors and walk them down. Especially if you use our best Clown build, which I have a couple videos on. If you guys want to check those out, super, super good with save and dissolution and stuff like that. Pain res, jolt, giving him the slowdown that he needs without having to walk around the map kicking all the gens and stuff. The killer in chase is insanely strong, especially for how, I don't want to use the word mindless, but it is probably the simplest power to use in the entire game, which is why I still have no idea how that, however long Clown guide is. I don't know, but this killer is super simple, super strong, and if you guys are looking for that, this is the killer for you. He also has Pinky Finger, one of the most busted add-ons in the game, in my opinion. I think they did nerf it, so you can only have 2 of those bottles at a time, but that means you can still slow a survivor and then direct hit them. There's really not much they can do. It's pretty easy. But yeah, there's where our Clown is going to go. Next up, we got Skull Merchant, which is definitely not one of the more interesting killers, in my opinion. I really did try to give her fair chance when she first came out. You know, going for chase merchants and stuff like that. It was fun, but again, now after the whole 3-gen thing happened and they tried to change her, and I find her power is just a little, it's just not interactive enough for me. But anyway, that's not what you care about. You care about her strength. So she is really good at locking down areas. You could chain together a lot of drones in a strong part of the map where they have a lot of good tiles, like ARP, for example. You can put it all down that middle area. They can't do anything about it. They're going to get injured for free and then eventually slowed by 10% for just her existing and putting a drone there. It's ridiculous. Still has some really good add-ons. Really good at, like I said, at holding an area. So you want to play pretty territorial on her still, but you can't have the drones ticking people on gens, which is much better for the game, in my opinion. Either way, I mean, I think the design is just bad as Skull Merchant. I really am not a big fan of it, but if you guys are, you know, you're going to be doing all right. She's not so bad. Next up, we got our boy, the Nemi, who has a much more interesting chase power than Skull Merchant, in my opinion. Super fun to use. A lot of cool tricks you can do. He can bust through pallets like some of the best killers at doing that, like Demo and Bubba. He can just shred through them, making maps dead zones. You don't even have to do that. For some reason, a lot of the Nemi players I see when I play Survivor have this really strong tendency to just sit near any hook they get and then tunnel them every single time. I don't know why. I guess it's just because they have like the 3 health states thing and they just feel like they have to do that. But it's odd. He is a really good killer. Splitting pressure early on especially is super good. And the sooner you get your tier 3, I mean, he is a monster in chase with tier 3. I seriously encourage some of you guys to, if you do enjoy playing Nemi, to just use your whip for a few games, and it's so strong. You know, try to get that tier 3, maybe by the time 1 gen pops, and it is ridiculous the things you can do. Super quick chases, and they do have to be running to the cases to get vaccines and stuff. Something I don't want to gloss over, though, is he does still have those zombies, which work together with perks like Discordance and Pain Res. Anytime those are giving you a loud noise notification, the zombies are alerted too. The zombies are actually pretty great now, so definitely don't pretend that they're not, especially if you pair them with some of the movement speed zombie add-ons for Nemi. I mean, they can really put in work. I've seen it happen, especially if you get a map like RPD or something like that where they're blocking a hallway. Really, really solid. But, yeah, next killer is our boy Bubba. Look at him. He got his own game now. Can you believe that? What a guy. Bubba is one of the best at shredding pallets in the entire game. He has an insta-down base kit, which can be a little bit tricky to get the hang of, you know. But once you play a couple games with him, you'll get it down pretty quick. Especially if you're learning that, like, moonwalk with the chainsaw and stuff like that. Bring Bamboozle on this killer to block up some strong windows. You know, a little bit of slowdown. You're going to be rolling through survivors, especially if you find that Meg early on who's down to lob every pallet, making that whole chunk of the map a dead zone. You're going to be having a fucking blast. I promise you. He's super solid, pretty solid add-ons. The chilies and the eerie flesh, really, really good. Yeah, other than that, I don't have too much to say about Bubba. Next up in the B tier for me is the Knight, who is kind of similar to Skull Merchant for me. I find the playstyles of both of them extremely boring. Somebody mentioned this in my stream one time, and it actually like blew me away that Behavior just made 2 killers back to back where your whole objective as survivors is just run out of the circle. It's just so insane to me. Yeah, it's super boring for me to play against because as a survivor, I never feel outplayed. And then playing as the Knight, I never feel like I outplayed a survivor. Like, I'll sit there, you know, we'll be running shack or whatever, the guard gets on them. I push them into it. They die. There's nothing they can do. It's not really... for me, I find a lot more enjoyment in the skill expression. But, again, not what you guys are probably looking for here in a tier list about how strong they are. The reason he's right here is... You can definitely manage the gens super well, especially his gens or his guards being able to kick 5% off the gens now. The assassin is fantastic in chase. Made for this just recently got nerfed, which means survivors are not faster than his guards now. The guard effects in the jailer, which is phenomenal. I don't know why that was ever a thing, but that's a whole different topic. We've talked about made for this more than enough on this channel, I think. Oh, Knight can also shred pallets and chase with the Karn effects. Super good. Really solid range of add-ons, but the 2 you're really going to want are the Call to Arms and the Map of the Realm. Very, very good. Make his power just super easy to land the guards. If you don't have them, it can be quite a bit trickier, just a little bit finicky on how the circles will spread out and stuff like that. Yeah, he's great in chase. You can deny any loop you want to by just plopping a guard down. The survivor can't run it then, or they'll be getting hit by that thing. Also... like I said, I love the assassin if I am going to be playing Knight because, man, it is such an easy chase with him. You don't even... If I'm ever looking to just brain off, I'll hop on Knight with the double assassin add-on, and they're just going down. They're folding. And the next one, who was a lot lower last patch, in my opinion, again, because made for this was in the game, we got Doctor. He's back up there. Similar to a lot of these killers that I've been talking about, really solid add-ons, except this killer is a lot different. He actually has a ridiculous amount of builds that you can run on him and make him super powerful for different situations. I've mentioned this in other videos before. He's got gen blocking builds, skill check builds, you know, just normal slowdown builds, chase builds with the save and the rapid. I mean, the list goes on. This killer can get stupid value out of so many things, especially with different add-on combinations, that you cannot ignore him as a very, very solid killer. And now with Made for this nerfed, his chase power is back to being extremely solid, especially if you're running the Electrode and Discipline add-ons. He just has so much going for him that's really hard to say or put him anywhere below this at this point, especially with the MFT nerf. Really good built-in info. A lot of people running Calm Spirit right now, which is one thing that hurts him because of Ultimate Weapon being in the game. But other than that, he's in a super solid spot, and I'm going to be happy to see a lot more Doctors playing again, I think. Next up, we have Onryo, who I've played a little bit of. I got to be honest, I think this killer is stupid easy to play as well. As soon as your TVs come up, you could just be spamming them. If people are grabbing tapes, as long as you got some good info perks like Gearhead, Lethal, stuff like that to know where they are, you can be knocking them out of their hands. There's 2 free stacks Condemn. And then just spamming your TP over and over. I've played her, I don't want to, no more than 10 times since she got reworked. Mostly because I feel bad. It's like 3 condemns minimum every game. It feels so easy. Like, I don't even have to put in the effort. It's just so much slowdown for me pressing control. I don't even know. exactly what they were thinking with this killer. I think I saw that they were gonna be touching her again, which is a good call because I just don't like the design. But you never know. Maybe survivors just still haven't found out a great way to play around her. I don't think so. I think just being able to spam TPs is crazy. Either way, next killer we got is the Legion, who might surprise some of you guys, but I got a pretty crazy win streak on them, even during the MFT meta. Legion's super solid at so many things. They have great add-ons too. Never Sleep Pills and Mural Sketch are the two you're really going to want if you're looking to do a win streak like that. Fifth hits are stupid easy with that add-on combination on any map. Stupid easy. Stacking some slowdown on top of having everybody injured and putting them in mend is going to make survivors have a very bad time. I'm going to be honest. They're probably not going to have fun. I saw more DCs, I think, in the Legion win streak than on any other killer I've done a win streak on. And it's not even close. It's not like I was going out of my way to play mean. They were just getting bored playing against Legion, which I can't blame them too much. But yeah, he's super solid. They're super solid. And they have great cosmetics too. So you can't go wrong if you like the Legion. Next up, we got Hag, who used to be a much better killer, but they gave her a little mini rework not too long ago where survivors can wipe away her traps instead of burning them with flashlights, which was generally more of a nerf to her than a buff. A survivor following you around doesn't even need to have a flashlight or flashbang to get rid of them anymore, and she doesn't even get notified now when they're destroyed. So she could have been setting up a web, having the ratty Dwight going around wiping away all the traps while you're pushing a survivor into the 3 you had in a corner, and by the time you get that hook, all your traps are gone and you have to start from square one again without any idea that they were even popping to begin with. That is pretty bad design to me. Still, people can heal pretty quick, but it's not like Circle of Healing, so she's not too affected by it. But yeah, this killer's just nothing special. Again, you have to like 3-4 gen most of the time on this killer to get any kind of value out of her power, or it's going to be a nightmare. Body block Hag's not too bad, but again, you're probably going to be playing pretty territorial, like around Shack, if that's what you're doing. And that means you have to get somebody in the Shack, which is easier said than done. Next up in the B tier, we got Slinger, and I could definitely argue for him being higher than this. I think this killer is mad underrated, super strong. I've had ridiculous games on this killer with just chases that you couldn't even get from Nurse. Just seconds in chase with this guy. Again, something that can hurt him is pre-dropping strong pallets, which is why I bring Dissolution to make that pretty much impossible for the survivors to do. On top of that, you know, bring some slowdown with him to help you cover the map a little bit, because he is 110, he is slow, he's not going to be able to have that mobility of some of the other killers. But, you know, Pain, Res, Jolt, Deadlock to kind of be able to pressure gens that you can't quite get to. Very, very good. And then again, he has that nutty chase power. He does have some built-in slowdown if you're going to be playing a little bit hit and run, because you know you have to manage some gens. He's got that mend similar to Legion, which is going to be making survivors have to do that before they can heal. It does take a solid amount of time. He's really, really good, and he's got some great add-ons. Got a little bit of quality of life love with a quicker reload base kit, allowing you to bring Cigar now with the tin oil can and stuff like that. Very, very good. Again, like I said, I do have an active win streak on Deathslinger on the stream if you guys want to check that out. We do that sometimes. And yeah, he's super good. Next up for me, we got the Huntress, pretty much near the top of B tier. I think she's still a really good killer, and there's some disgusting Huntresses that'll make her look like she's better than this, but in all honesty, she's really not. Again, I've mentioned this multiple times while we've talked about Huntress in tier lists before, but I'll say it again. Survivors are smarter now than they ever were. I'm not saying survivors are all the best. I've definitely seen some real newbie ones, but they're smarter now than they ever were in the past in general. They hear that ding sound from the Huntress. They're going to be sitting behind a rock. They're going to know you got some aura reading, lethal, barbecue, you know, darkness reveal, whatever it is. They're going to know you got some aura reading, sit behind a rock, make it really hard on you. She can still camp pretty well and avoid the anti-camping mechanic that Behavior added to the game, which does still make her pretty strong. But yeah, there's also just a ton of like the same thing with Billy. They've added so many little weird rocks and objects that survivors can play around with, some funky hitboxes too, like Nostromo and Borgo, that her power can be a little bit rough. But you know, she does get those like shipping container hitboxes to get free hits here and there too. So it's give and take with her. And finally, at the top of B tier, in my opinion, after the latest change with Trickster, I'm going to put him at the top of B tier because he can get very similar hits, even easier than Huntress. Sure, it takes a few more knives, but he's got basically an Uzi. He can get very similar hits to Huntress, where he doesn't have to really play around pallets or windows like a normal M1 killer would. Can get some long range stuff. Very hard to W key out in the open or without going down against him. And now he's 115, which means he can just play like an M1 in a lot of tiles and be just fine, unlike before when he was 110. New main event that they just changed is a whole lot better than what they had previously just added into the game. So I'm curious to see if he can be even higher than this in the future. But for me right now, I'm going to put him right at the top of B tier. For me, at the bottom of the A tier is going to be Singularity. I think the killer's really good. I've definitely seen some great Singularity players out there like Coco. Super solid killer. Again, against a very solid team, he does have a lot of counterplay. You know, there's only so much you can do. People can take hits. People can run in with EMPs. Trying to TP through a window can be made impossible by people kind of body blocking your landing spot, similar to like the way someone would with Nurse. Very hard to control the gens how you'd want to. I've seen some of the Singularities that'll just sit there 3-genning. I think that's pretty nasty. So I'm going to try not to talk about that too much. But I've definitely played against them. I remember this game on Ormond. There was a Singularity just hardcore 3-genning. Very boring. But I'm sure if we were swift up, it wouldn't have been too bad to deal with. Yeah, other than that, the killer really does have a lot going for him. It just takes so much more effort than probably any of the killers you're going to see above him to get that value, in my opinion. So, you know, if you want to put the time in, I think the killer is really cool and really interesting and fun and different. So definitely worth it. But again, if you're looking to chill out a little bit more, I would say this is probably not the killer for you. Next up, a killer that just recently got reintroduced into the game is the Demogorgon, who is super solid. He has great built-in info with the portals, great mobility with the portals, super solid chase power with that shred, being able to save the best for last, like no other killer in the game probably could. Can shred pallets, you know, he's just so much going for him. Really solid add-ons too. They did take care of that one that made Devour just busted on him, I think. But other than that, he is super solid. You really can't go wrong playing him. He's got a little bit of everything going for him, even stealth. And it's all pretty good. So there you go. There's Demo. Dredge is also going to be up there in A tier. Amazing mobility. If he had permanent Nightfall throughout a match, I would put him probably at the top of the A tier, maybe even the bottom of S tier, because Nightfall is a disgusting ability. You have no idea. If survivors aren't running windows, they can get lost so easily. Nightfall is super dark, and the amount of time his power refreshes and the speed he's TPing is just crazy. But outside of Nightfall, he still does have a lot going for him. What you're going to want to be doing with him outside of Nightfall is playing super hit and run to build that up, and then you can play super aggressive in Nightfall, whether it's getting some slugs right away and then getting your pain res or whatever slowdown you brought, ramp it up for you. Super solid. And now that MFT is nerfed again, I think he's even better than last patch. That was one thing that was pretty tough to deal with, I would say. Just the fact that you could put down your remnant in a loop and they would just W key to anything on the map because they have MFT. That was pretty lame, but it's gone now, and he's a good time. Next up, we got Pinhead. The box is super strong, and it's actually pretty freaking easy to be able to tell exactly where the box is going to be at all times, just if you bring lethal. So the box is always going to try and spawn as far from you and the survivors as possible, so you can go there right off the start. And then once you grab the box, all the survivors will scream. You can see exactly where they are. You know where you are. And you have a great idea of where the box is going to be next. Now, if you're pairing this with stuff like Pain Res, DMS, Sloppy, there's going to be so much slowdown and so much chaos going on throughout the entire game that them getting the gens done before you kill them all is going to be an almost impossible task unless they're some of the most coordinated teams out there. Very, very good killer, and it's just so much going for him just right there with the slowdown. I didn't even talk about his chase bar, which is fantastic. It's a little bit harder to use than Clown or Doctor, but it works really similarly. You know, you have them in a spot you want them, in a tile, hit the chain, they can't go anywhere, you get the hit. That's how it is. It's as simple as that. It's very good. He also has the Engineer's Fang, which is one of the most broken add-ons in the entire game, in my opinion. Again, the freest injuries you could probably get in the game, even easier than Legion in a lot of spots. So that's how it is for me, and we're going to get to Pyramidhead. I have Pyramidhead right above Pinhead, straight up through his ability to tunnel. One mistake from the survivors stepping in a trail, which sometimes can be like totally invisible, is pretty wild. That person could just be straight up dead if you want him to be the majority of the time. Ignores the DS off the record and stuff like that. A lot of survivors have been using lately. Been seeing a ton of those full second chance goblin builds in my killer game. So really, really good killer to avoid some of that stuff. And on top of that, he has probably the best zoning in the entire game when you're just holding down M2. Just pushing survivors out of loops because they're trying to dodge your power that you're not even using yet. You're just putting a trail down. It's pretty wild. Yeah, he can get some really crazy hits that only the S tier killers could really dream of outside of him. Fantastic down potential. He can hit multiple survivors at the same time. A lot going for him. And the only problem is if you are getting a lot of value to the cages, there's a lot of the best killer perks that you're not going to be getting super great value from, like Pain Res, DMS, and stuff like that. But either way, he is fantastic. All right, next up, in my opinion, we got the newest addition to DBD, which is Chucky. He definitely has a better chase power than any of the other killers in this list. He can get downs at ridiculous speeds, ignoring pallets just by sliding under them if he wants to, being able to play around windows and stuff. They did just recently nerf him, or I might have put him a little bit higher than this, maybe. But yeah, he's pretty solid. Again, he has an insane chase power. It is ridiculous how fast you can be downing people in pretty much any part of the map. His only problem is not being able to pressure the map. He's 110 and his power does have a pretty huge cooldown. So if you are messing up once or twice even, you can really lose a lot on Chucky. But if you're on point, the killer is extremely good at downing people and making or creating just a ton of pressure off the hooks that you're getting on him. So I think he's really good. Some really solid add-ons that could be a little bit stronger in some areas, but other than that, he is a great killer. I'm having a ton of fun playing him. Working on a little bit of win streak on the stream as well for Chucky. So if you guys want to check that out, make sure to pop in the stream when we're doing those. Right above Chucky, I am putting Xeno, who has his power unlocked right at the start of the game. Unlike a lot of the killers with as strong of an ability as he has great map pressure. You can find survivors in seconds from spawning in. And then you have this really solid chase power with his tail ready to go immediately. They do have the flamethrowers to play around him, but he can easily deal with those if you're running emergency helmet or something like that. They did touch him a little bit. It did used to be a lot better, but it was mostly because it was bugged. You'd have this like insane recovery on your hits with his tail, but he's still super good. Like I said, when you combine a great chase power with great map pressure, you're going to be dominating a lot of the time, especially if you get this killer down really well. Yeah, and make sure to use that emergency helmet if you are going to be playing a lot of Xeno. It is definitely worth it. It's a green add-on you don't have to do anything for, and it just makes it so the flamethrowers aren't breaking you out of your power instantly. My nose itches, dude. Somebody who's tickling my nose with a feather. Next up, we got Wesker time. He is very good. Now, when I was talking about Xeno having a great chase power and great mobility, Wesker has both those things with built-in slowdown from people having to cleanse his power, with built-in info from people having to cleanse his power. Some of the strongest tunneling in the entire game, outside of Pyramidhead and like Nurse and Blight, because One thing that I think is absolutely disgusting about this killer that I think should be absolutely changed is I've seen killers bring the green herb, and they'll have a survivor who's hooked. Their teammate goes to unhook them. What do? They instantly smack the survivor who's on the hook with the BT, and they are 8% slowed within like 5 seconds of leaving the hook. That is disgusting and not fair. I don't know how you could ever play around being tunneled in that way. I don't know how it could ever be possible. So that's definitely something I still think behavior should look at. Either way, a ton of skill expression on this killer with his power in chase, if that's how you're using it, not just turbo tunneling somebody. Really, really great at being able to move around the map with the power. Does have a little bit of a cooldown on it, but it's definitely worth it for what you're getting out of it. He's got great add-ons across the board. Being able to throw people into the edge of the map, zoning them from everything, and injuring them at the same time is insanely strong. It basically results in an insta-down anytime you can pull that off. So there's just so much going for this killer. There's some techs which are definitely just blatant exploits, which can even ramp up his power a little bit more. But I definitely wouldn't recommend using them. They take a lot of time to try and break the game to be able to pull off consistently. So, but if you really want to put the time in, I guess, you know, have at it. Right above Wesker, I'm putting the Oni. Straight up off of his ability to just end a game in a minute, which he can easily do. There's definitely those maps that we've talked about before that can be tough for an M1 killer, like the meat plant, Haddonfield, Garden, those kinds of things. That can make it significantly harder for him to get his power. But if you're just getting one hit and you can get that power ramped up, you can get the game finished so quickly. I don't think any other killer on the roster could even come close. Even Blight with his disgusting add-ons, which we'll talk about in a minute. He works fantastic with some of the meta killer perks right now as well. I want to mention Ultimate Weapon on Oni is absolutely fucking disgusting. If you're running that with like Distressing and Infectious even, you don't even need a lot of slowdown on this guy. You just need to be able to get that hit early enough and get that info rolling. He could just roll through teams of survivors like they're nothing. Super solid, easy to use add-ons like the Scalp Top Knot, you know, the faster rushing and the longer duration on his power. Super, super easy. You don't really have to do anything for him. They just work with you and straight up buff his power, which is already insanely strong. So that's obviously a huge plus for him. And he's a blast to play. So if you guys haven't played Oni, definitely recommend that. He's actually the first killer I ever mained, and I think he's absolutely fantastic. Top of A tier, in my opinion, is the Plague, who has a disgusting power just like Oni, except she doesn't even have to get a hit for it. You can bring double apple add-ons with Plague and start with 3 uses of her power, which one of those by themselves could just straight up end the game. So if you're looking to demolish the average teams and stuff, even strong teams can't really do anything against her power on a lot of maps. You bring lethal, double apples, you pop one of your pools right away, and you just walk them down, slugging them, getting full value out of your power. It's going to make the match a complete nightmare for the survivors. It's very little you can do against her power and chase, to be honest. So, ignoring everything from windows, pallets, everything, even more so than Oni ever could. Very, very strong. Keeping people injured, like I said with Legion, is not a weak thing either. Plus, you know, they can't get value out of Iron Will or anything like that. They're going to have a giant stink cloud above them and making coughing noises the whole time. And if they're not Jonathan Byers, it's bearable. But if it's Jonathan... Yeah, her Eries are also some of the most disgusting in the entire game. Both of them are just absolutely busted, in my opinion. Plus, all the way down to Yellow add-on, she's got great stuff. So, a lot of just straight up buffs to Plague. A lot of crazy builds you can run on her, similar to like Doctor. Not quite the same, but still very, very strong. And yeah, there is the A tier. At the bottom of the S tier, in my opinion, is the Spirit, who is... always has been and always is going to be probably one of the best killers in the game. The only problem I have with Spirit is honestly how easy it is to play her. To really get value out of her power compared to some of the other killers, even in A tier. I mean, you compare it to Singularity. If you could swap their strengths, I'd be real happy with that, I think, in my personal opinion. But they're just, she is so strong. The mother-daughter ring by itself is what mostly still gets her into S, in my opinion. without that, if Spirit didn't have any add-ons, I truly believe she would be closer to here on a tier list. But, I mean, Mother-Daughter Ring, Cherry Blossom, Yakioke is still very good. It has been nerfed, but Rusty Flute, she has some insane game-changing add-ons that just make her such a disgusting, like, monster and chase, even without the mind games and stuff. Just very, very strong killer that you can dominate with in probably 5 to 10 games of her, just destroying any teams you find. If you really just put in the time to practice those 5 to 10 games, you can just dominate survivors. And that brings us to our next killer, who is the Artist. She is absolutely disgusting. You guys have heard me talk about her a million times, but for any of you guys new to the channel or new to my tier lists, she is a Swiss Army knife of a killer. She has a tool with her birds for every single situation you could ever be in, whether it's pressuring gens, cutting off a pallet, you know, trapping a pallet, setting up slingshots, getting free info, pressuring the hook at the same time as you're chasing another survivor, chasing one survivor with the birds while you pressure a gen. I mean, there's just so much you can do with this killer in any single situation. Works disgustingly well with DMS, barbecue as well. Super, super great on the Artist. She really only has a couple maps that don't feel phenomenal for her, and that's definitely saying something in a game like DBD, where they can really just make these maps horribly survivor-sided some of the times. So that is amazing. She has very simple add-ons that, because her power just speaks for itself. The only one that I would say is like pretty game-changing is Severed Hands, because it'll allow you to have even more skill expression on the Artist and getting multiple hits with your birds by just landing one when they spread to the other survivors. Super, super solid killer. I think even if they nerf the fuck out of her, she's always going to be S tier in my heart. So that's where she is. And the second strongest killer in the game is the Blight. He has legitimately, in my opinion, probably the most broken add-ons in the entire game. From Eerie to Yellow, honestly. It is disgusting. Compound 33 should have never been an add-on. Iridescent Blight Tag. There's no reason for this killer to have an insta-down in his power. Alchemist Ring is so disgustingly broken, I don't even want to mention the name half the time. And the list goes on. I did hear they're going to be giving him an add-on pass pretty soon, so this could definitely change soon. I don't think he'll drop any farther than here at all. I don't think he would drop farther than there. But either way, as it stands right now, Compound 33 is probably the most broken thing in the entire game outside of our next killer. If I think of anything else, I'll let you guys know. But yeah, the main problem I do have with Blight is just the add-on string. But yeah, Blight has insane map mobility, an insane chase power, disgusting add-ons, can get value out of all the meta stuff, ultimate weapon, pain res, DMS, pop, anything you could ever want to run in this killer, you can do. And it is just always overkill if you're running the strong stuff. You almost never need it. And then he has stuff like Compound 33 to take all the skill ceiling away from him, which I really do think Blight has one of the highest skill ceilings in all of DBD. But you run Compound 33 and you don't even need to be decent with him. It just, it's like a freebie almost. So that could get changed a little bit. And other than that, I think he's in a pretty good spot. I know there's still some people who hate Blight out there. But, I mean, it really does take a little bit to really get solid with his power. So, I think it's fine for him to be strong. I think, you know, a high learning curve matched with high potential is fair. And the last killer on this list. If you've been paying attention, you know there's only one killer left. And she's definitely the most broken thing that's ever been put in Dead by Daylight. And that is Claudette. That is the Nurse. Yeah, she just ignores everything on the map completely. You know, pallets, windows, nothing to her, walls. All she needs is maybe a little bit of line of sight, and you're just doomed. Even the best survivors can't last more than, 20 seconds in chase against a nurse who really knows what she's doing and who's really on point. Yeah, I think she's always going to be the best killer in the game unless they do some real significant rework to her to really, really tone her down. Because, I mean, you look at it, you look at a killer like Chucky, right? Who has a very solid chase power. And then he gets a 25-second cooldown on his power just for using it. Like, even if he didn't get the hit, 25 seconds. Nurse gets both her blinks back in like 5 seconds. It is disgusting. I have no idea. And there used to be recharge add-ons. There used to be range add-ons. Those have thankfully been taken care of. The killer's just, I mean, cheating. Now, don't get me wrong. Survivor can be extremely easy to play and win with if people have any clue what they're doing. The majority of survivors simply don't. So, you know, a lot of teams will get stomped a lot of the time. But so Nurse can kind of counteract that a little bit. But in my opinion, that doesn't make it okay. I feel like we should balance the game on both sides. You know, we should balance the toolboxes. We should balance the maps that are terrible, like Haddonfield and stuff like that. We should balance the Nurse, right? Both of these things, all of these things should be looked at to have a little bit of a healthier game and have people having more fun, in my opinion. But either way, that is the tier list. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure to hit that like button, and I will catch you guys in the next one.